Monday morning commute time. Today we're going to be talking about branding and rebranding in particular. So let's get started. Big thank you to Sue Green of Rick's Green for her question. What are the top tips that you have for people when they're rebranding their business? So I've got 3 top tips and I've got 3 definitely don't do's. Here we go. Top tip number 1, evolution, not revolution. Look at all the top brands, big companies out there. When they rebrand, the changes are often very, very minimal. So what you're looking to do when you're looking to rebadge your company is to keep it simple and evolve it. Don't make wholesale changes. So that is definitely top tip number 1. Top tip number 2, understand where your brand is at before you start trying to tinker with anything and change it. You need to ask your customers, you need to ask your suppliers, you need to ask your colleagues what they think about your brand, what emotions are triggered when they come into contact with your brand, whether that's seeing a blog post or a testimonial or actually getting an invoice from you. You know, what do they feel about the whole experience of interacting with your business? And that'll give you a good indication of where your brand is at. You need to understand that before you start trying to change anything. That's top tip number 2. Top tip number 3, ask yourself this question before you start anything. Why am I rebranding my business? You need to make sure there is a legitimate need or requirement to rebrand, because if there isn't, why are you wasting your time, why are you wasting your money, and why are you wasting your effort into changing something that doesn't need to be fixed effectively? So top tip number 3, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So there's the top 3 tips for when you're rebranding your business, and here are 3 things that you should definitely avoid when you go through the process of rebranding. So number 1 is to avoid chopping and changing with your branding and your identity every few months, few years. What you need to do is you need to, especially small businesses, what you need to do is you need to have an established identity and stick with it, develop it, curate it, make sure people are really becoming familiar with it. Don't chop and change every 5 minutes, because you won't build that trust with your customer base. So that's the first one. Second thing to make sure you avoid when rebranding is to doing it on your own. So make sure you speak to people so you're fully aware of where your brand is in the minds of your customers and prospects in particular. But also, at that point when you've got that knowledge, you need to make sure you don't just launch into something and try and do it yourself. Work with a professional, so don't DIY your branding. Make sure you get a professional opinion on what you're about to do. Third thing to avoid when you're rebranding is to make sure you avoid being too quiet about your rebrand. If you do a rebrand and it goes under the radar and nobody's aware of it, then it's a complete wasted opportunity. When you're rebranding and going through the process of rebranding, and when you launch that new brand identity, you need to make sure you tell everyone about it. So the third thing to avoid is being too quiet and not being proud of what you've done. So there are my top 3 things to avoid when rebranding. So that was Monday Morning Commute episode 6. I hope the information in there was of use. Thank you very much to Sue Green, as I said before, for her question. If anyone else has got any more topics they'd like me to comment on, please drop me an inbox message on LinkedIn or email gareth@designpit.co.uk, and I'll happily put it into the thought bank for publishing later on, probably into 2021 now. So thanks for watching, hope it was useful, and we'll see you next week for the last one of the year.